worshipping Govardhan Hill. And we will discuss today text 1 till 24. Text 1. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narottanam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jamudiyayat Naspaya Sabathasu Nityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavatu Tamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistaki. Text 1. Shri Sukha Vacha Bhagavana Pitatraiva Baladevena Samyuta Apasyam Nifasham Kopan Indra Chakha Kritu Yaman. Text 1. Sukadev Goswami said, while staying in that very place with his brother Baladev, Lord Krishna happened to see the coward man busily arranging for sacrifice for Indra that time. So in the last chapter we heard that the Brahmins were afraid to go to Krishna, because if Kamsa heard that his wives had associated with Krishna, they would be in trouble. But Krishna had another plan that we hear in the purport. According to Sridhar Swami and other acharyas, the words Tatra Eva indicate that Lord Krishna stayed in the village of the Brahmins whose wives had satisfied him by their devotion. Thus he gave his mercy to those Brahmins as well as to the chaste wives who had no one to associate with except their husbands. In that place the coward man headed by Lord Krishna's father, Nanda Maharaj, was somehow or other preparing an elaborate sacrifice to Lord Indra. So Sridhar Swami, he also comments that after stopping the sacrifice meant for Indra, with some disturbance, that's better, yeah. Sridhar Swami also comments that after stopping the sacrifice meant for Indra, with different arguments for worshipping Govardhan Hill, so Lord Krishna destroyed the pride in the ritualistic activities of the earthly gods, the Vedic Brahmins, and now he's going to check the pride of the demigods and headed by Indra. So the Brahmins were too afraid to go to see Krishna, and Krishna went to them. Text 2. Tadapihyopi Bhagavan Sarvatma Sarvadarshana Prasraya Vanato Pichat Fritam Nando Purugamam. Being the omniscient super soul, the Supreme Lord Krishna already understood the situation. Yet he still humbly inquired from the elders headed by his father Nanda Maharaj. So Krishna was eager to enact his pastimes of lifting Govardhan Hill, and thus defeating the pride of Indra. Therefore he cleverly inquired from his father about the imminent sacrifice. So in Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada gives another reason why Krishna wanted to stop the sacrifice. Yes, besides defeating Indra's pride, he wanted to stop the residents of Raj to worship demigods. So in order to stop all such activities by his devotees, Krishna wanted to firmly establish exclusive devotional service during his presence in Vrindavan. Because he's the omniscient personality of God, that Krishna knew that the coward men, that they were preparing for this Indra Jagya, this Indra sacrifice. But that as a matter of etiquette, he began to inquire with great honor and submission elder personalities like Nanda Maharaj. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he analyzes the Sanskrit of this second verse. It says, Krishna knew about the sacrifice because he had seen it many times before. As Paramatma, the Sarva Atma, he was inspired of Vrajavasis to perform the sacrifice, yet being eager to enact his pastimes of Govardhan Hill, Krishna cleverly inquired from his father about the imminent sacrifice. He's called Sarvadakshan, because he could see into the future. He would smash Indra's pride and enjoy pastimes with his loving devotees for 7 days. So Krishna will ask questions and Nanda will give answers. And then Krishna will speak the philosophy of Karma Mimamsa. Text 3 and 4. That Lord Krishna said, my dear father, kindly explain to me what is this great endeavor of yours all about? What is it meant to accomplish? If this is a ritual sacrifice, then for whose satisfaction is it intended? And by what means is it going to be executed? Please tell me about it. Oh, Father, I have a great desire to know and am ready to hear in good faith. Certainly no secrets are to be kept by saintly personalities who sees all others as equal to themselves, who have no conception of mine of another's, no conception of mine or another's, and who do not consider who is a friend, who is an enemy, and who is neutral. So saintly persons, they have no conception of mine and another. This is a very high platform. Also, the true impersonalists have this conception of that no conception of mine or another. And Mother Narayani said, yes, also the hippies and the Gurukulists too, she said. Because we will read the purport of verse 4. Lord Krishna's father might have thought that his son was a mere child and thus could not properly question the validity of a Vedic sacrifice. But the Lord's clever statement here would certainly have convinced Nanda that Sri Krishna was making a serious inquiry, not a whimsical inquiry, and that a serious answer should be given. In Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada writes, upon this inquiring, his father Nanda Maharaj remained silent. He was thinking this young boy would not be able to understand the intricacies of performing Jagya. But now Krishna is going to refine his last statement. That he says, one who is neutral may be avoided like an enemy, but a friend should be considered like one's own self. Purport. That even if Nanda Maharaj did not see friends, enemies, and neutral parties as equal, Lord Krishna, being Nanda Maharaj's son, was certainly a most trustworthy friend, and therefore not to be left out of intimate discussions. In other words, Nanda Maharaj might have thought that as a householder he could not act on the highest saintly platform, and thus Lord Krishna furnished additional reasons why his father should trust him and reveal the entire purpose of sacrifice. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, Nanda Maharaj stood silent, doubting his position of parental aloofness. Garga Muni had predicted that his son would be equal to Narayan in his qualities, and the young boy had already conquered and killed many powerful demons. That text 6. Well, we will first read Srila Vishwanath Bhakti Thakur. Anticipating that one of the coward men may say, as this is a private affair, we should not tell a small boy with little intelligence. Krishna utters statements that reveals he is very learned. Krishna said, those who are of good character see all people on the same level as themselves. They do not distinguish between friends, enemies, and neutral parties. Therefore, you should trust me and reveal the entire purpose of sacrifice. Nanda Maharaj, but we are householders and cannot follow such standards of saintly behavior. To answer that objection, Krishna says, one who is indifferent may be avoided like an enemy. Ujjvala Nilamani defines the Tatastha or neutral person as a friend of the opposing group. The neutral person is not an enemy or a friend and should not be avoided nor accepted, therefore is included among those to be avoided. Krishna continues, but one should have faith in the friend as one's very own self. I'm more than a friend. I'm an intimate family member. So, text 6. When people in this world perform activities, sometimes they understand what they are doing, and sometimes they don't. Those who know what they are doing achieve success in their work, whereas ignorant people do not. So, many of us are brought up in different religions. So do we question, have we always questions why is it that we are doing these rituals? Why are we doing them? So we should know in devotional service what we are doing and what we want to achieve. So, text 7. Such being the case, this ritualistic endeavor of yours should be clearly explained to me. Is it a ceremony based on scriptural injunction or simply a custom of ordinary society? So is it a custom or is it a scriptural injunction? So this is from Kavi Karnapuri. He writes, after speaking so maturely, Krishna sat next to Vrajraj Nanda on a cloth asen. Nanda lovingly picked up his son, who was like a spotless moon on the earth, and placed him on his lap. Hearing the sweet questions of his son, Nanda affectionately smiled, revealing his attractive teeth and soft cloth on his face, which resembled nectar drops of milk. The nectar appeared to be washing and nourishing Nanda's beard with white and black hair. Beaming in a jolly mood, Vrajraj Nanda tactfully described the nature of the sacrifice. Described the nature of the sacrifice. And that description we hear in verse 8, 9. Nanda Maharaj replied, that's Nanda Maharaj, that said, the great Lord Indra is a controller of the rain. The clouds are his personal representative, and they directly provide rainwater, which gives happiness and sustenance to all the creatures. Purport. Without clean rainwater, the earth could not possibly provide food or drink for anyone, nor could there be cleanliness. Thus it would be difficult to overestimate the value of rain. Then text 9. Not only we, my dear son, but also many other men worship him, the Lord and Master of the rain-giving clouds. We offer him grain and other paraphernalia of worship produced to his own discharge in the form of rain. Purport. Nanda Maharaj patiently tried to explain the facts of life to his young son. Sri Krishna, but in fact Nanda and all the residents of Vrindavan could learn an astonishing lesson as explained in this chapter, and they will learn an astonishing lesson. So, the purpose of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. In this verse, Nanda Maharaj gives the logic behind the worship. Nanda Maharaj said, this is a local custom. Indra sends the rain, which is pleasing, and gives life to the entities such as grass. Vishwanath continues, Nanda Maharaj is affectionately addressing Krishna with the word Tata, my dear son. The hint is, through the mercy of demigods like Indra, I have obtained a qualified son like you. Therefore, you should not oppose this action. In this sacrifice, there should be no false pride. We worship Indra with materials created by Indra's rain, just as one worships the Ganga with the Ganga water. Interesting. That text 10. By accepting the remnants of sacrifice performed to Indra, people sustain their lives and accomplish the threefold aims of religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification. Thus, Lord Indra is the agent responsible for the fruitive success of industrious people. Purport. One may object that people sustain themselves by farming, by industry and so on. But as previously mentioned, All human and non-human endeavor depends on food and drink, which cannot be produced without ample rain. By the word Vihe-Bhaktivedanta further points out that the prosperity achieved through sacrifice for Indra is not meant merely for sense gratification, but also for religiosity and economic development. Unless people are well fed, it is difficult for them to execute their duties, and without performance of duties, it is difficult to be religious. So, grains are coming from rain, so they worship Indra. So the purpose of the sacrifice is dharma, artha, kama. We continue. Now Namaraj speaking. This religious principle is based on sound tradition. Anyone who rejects it out of lust, enmity, fear, or greed will certainly fail to achieve good fortune. So if a person neglects his religious duty because of lust, envy, fear, or greed, his life will never be perfect. So when Lord Keshav heard the statements of his father, that from his father, Nanda, and the other senior residents of Vraj, he addressed his father as follows to arouse anger in Lord Indra. So Srila Swami explains that Lord Krishna's intention was not simply to insult the demigod, but rather to knock down the great mountain of false pride that had arisen within the Lord's tiny servant, who was supposed to represent the Lord as Indra. By lifting Govardhan hill, Lord Krishna would thus initiate a blissful annual festival called Govardhan Puja, and he would further enjoy the pleasant pastime of dwelling for several days beneath the hill with all his loving devotees. Now we will read from Krishna book. Srila Prabhupada has some comments here. After hearing this, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the presence of his father and the elder cowherdmans of Vrindavan, spoke in such a way as to make the heavenly king Indra very angry. He suggested that they forego the sacrifice. His reasons for discouraging the sacrifice performed to please Indra were twofold. First, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, there is no need to worship the demigods for any material advancement. So please note down these reasons. So the first is discouraging the sacrifice to please Indra. Why? There is no need to worship demigods for any material advancement. All the results derived from worshipping the demigods are simply temporary. And those who are less intelligent are interested in temporary results. Second, whatever the temporary results one derives from worshipping the demigods is actually granted by the permission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita, Mayeva Vihitan Itan. Whatever benefit is supposed to be derived from the demigods is actually performed or bestowed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One cannot bestow any benefit upon others, but sometimes the demigods become puffed up by the influence of material nature. Thinking themselves all in all, they forget the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we have two more reasons here why Krishna wants to stop the demigod worship by his pure devotees. So in Srimad Bhagavatam it is clearly stated that in this instance, Krishna wanted to make King Indra angry. Krishna's advent was especially meant for the annihilation of the demons and protection of devotees, but King Indra was certainly a devotee. He was not a demon. But because he was puffed up, Krishna wanted to teach him a lesson. He first made Indra angry by stopping the Indra Puja, which had been arranged by the cowman in Vrindavan. Now, Sridhar Swami, he presents 6 theoretical points, and I want you to note them down. If you can write them down now, because we will give them a number from 1 to 6. And during the next verses, I will ask you which of these points Krishna is mentioning, just giving the number. So Sridhar Swami presents 6 theoretical points of this Karma Mimamsa philosophy that Krishna will speak. Of course, this philosophy is atheistic. Krishna is presenting this philosophy just to defeat the arguments that it's not that this philosophy is true. No, that will be clarified later. That it's not true. There is a supreme controller. But Karma Mimamsa takes that karma is the highest. That there is only karma. Karma is supreme. No need of a god. That's interesting. So the first point is, karma alone is sufficient to determine one's destiny. That's the first. So karma is sufficient. You do good work, you will get good results. You do pious deeds, you will get happiness. So no need for anything else. There is only karma, there is no spiritual world or something like that. It's just, yes, you take birth constantly, and yes, karma alone is sufficient to determine one's destiny. And the second point is that one's conditioned nature is a supreme controller. That you must act according to your nature, according to the body that you get. So what can we do? That's the second point. The third point is that the modes of nature are the supreme controller. There is no God. It's the 3 modes of nature. Of course, we know in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Mayadriksana Prakriti, Chacha. I'm controlling the 3 modes. But here, Krishna is saying, no, the 3 modes are the supreme controller. That's the third point. And the fourth point he makes is that the Supreme Lord is simply dependent aspect of karma. So that's interesting. Then it's not supreme, but he says the Supreme Lord is depending on karma. So the Lord cannot change your karma. So the fifth point is that the Supreme Lord is under control of karma. He is under control of karma. And the sixth point is that one's occupation is the actual worshipable deity. One's occupation is worshipable. So work is worship. You may have heard that has heard that also. That's misused a lot. That Well, of course, I'm raised in the West. I know the Western history and what happened during the Second World War, the Holocaust, when the Germans were putting the Jews in concentration camps, and these concentration camps at the entrance, there was a banner, Arbeit macht frei, that's German. And it means, yes, that your work is your worship and your liberation. They use that also. That it's so horrible. But Krishna says karma is supreme. There is no God in control. These are two main characteristics we must remember from karma mimamsa. Karma is supreme and there is no God in control. Mother Prabhupada Priya, you have a question?
Yes, Maharaj. Can you clarify the difference between number 4 and 5, please?
Yeah. It is dependent as an aspect of karma. That means that he must award you your reactions of your karma. And point 5 means that Krishna himself, that the Lord himself is under control of karma, is forced by the modes of nature to take birth and so on like we. Does that help?
Yes, that's clear. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good. Now,
Maharaj, may I?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Can you repeat question number 2?
2 means that one's conditioned nature is the supreme controller.
Thank you, Maharaj.
We are not controlled by God, but by material nature. Good. Then we will go now from verse 13 to 22, and we will have an exercise. You listen and tell me which point that we are discussing here. So we go to verse 13. Lord Krishna said, it is by the force of karma that a living being, that a living entity takes birth. And it is by karma alone that he meets his destruction. His happiness, distress, fear, and sense of security all arise from the effects of karma. So which number is that?
1, Maharaj. 1.
Yes, it's number 1. Karma is sufficient to determine one's destiny. So please everyone mute. With that belief, what kind of actions do you then do in this world? But when you believe that, what kind of actions are you doing? Someone wants to answer this?
You try to do pious actions and avoid sinful actions.
Yes, one does pious action so we can see always, if we look, we observe people, then, and we observe their actions, then we can see or question, what did they do in their previous life to do this now, to have this reaction? That it's very, just people say, it's just my fate, what can I do? It's fatalistic, right? We read purport, verse 13. Lord Krishna minimized the importance of the demigods by speaking the philosophy known as Karmavad of Karma Mimamsa, which basically is atheism with a belief in reincarnation. According to this philosophy, there are subtle laws of nature that reward or punish us according to how we act. As you sow, so shall you reap. That's the Bible. That in a future life, one reaps the fruits of his present work. And this is the sum and substance of reality. Lord Krishna, being God himself, could hardly be a serious proponent of this mediocre philosophy. In the role of a young boy, he was simply teasing his pure devotees by preaching it. So he was teasing them. It's not a real philosophy. Of course, some accepted that as a real philosophy. The Karma Mimamsa is one of the 6 darshans, and all the 6 darshans are atheistic. That's interesting. So Srila Jiva Goswami points out that Krishna was thinking, why are these eternal associates of mine appearing as my father and other relatives and friends so caught up in this worship of Indra? Thus, although the Lord's main purpose was to take away the false pride of Indra, he also wanted to remind the eternal devotees that they need not divert their attention to so-called other gods, since in fact his devotees were already living with the supreme absolute truth, the Almighty God, Almighty Lord himself. So I will now go to the Bhagavatam and see if we can find it. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, 14, chapter 14, text 55. And this verse discusses Karma Mimamsa. It's the first book of Sukadev Goswami to Maharaj Pariksit. 6:14:55 says, "My Lord, you may say that there is no law that the father must die in the lifetime of his son, and that the son must be born in the lifetime of his father, since everyone lives and dies according to his own fruitive activity. However, if fruitive activity is so strong that birth and death depend on it, there is no need of a controller or God." So that's Karma Mimamsa. The karma is supreme, no God. Again, if you say that a controller is needed because the material energy does not have the power to act, one may answer that if the bonds of affection you have created are disturbed by fruitive action, no one will raise children with affection. Instead, everyone will cruelly neglect his children. Since you have cut the bonds of affection that compel a parent to raise his child, you appear inexperienced and unintelligent. So we will read the purport. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, Karmani nirdahati kunti sabhakti bhajam. When one is taken to Krishna consciousness, devotional service is not affected by the results of karma. Not affected by it. In this verse, karma has been stressed on the basis of Karma Mimamsa philosophy, which says that one must act according to his karma, and that one must act according to his karma, and that the Supreme Controller must give the results of karma. The subtle laws of karma, which are controlled by the Supreme, cannot be understood by ordinary conditioned souls. Therefore, Krishna says that one who can understand him and how he's acting, controlling everything by the subtle laws, immediately becomes free by his grace. This is the statement of Brahma Samhita, Karmani nirtadati kintu sabhakti bhajam. Brahma Samhita 554. One should take to devotional service without reservations and surrender everything to the supreme will of the Lord. That will make one happy in this life and in the next. So this. Now we have another verse that in the Bhagavatam speaking about this, that and that's in the 7th canto. The 7th canto, just a moment. 7th canto, chapter 7, verse 48, 7:7:48. The 4 principles of advancement in spiritual life, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, are dependent on the disposition of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, my dear friends, follow in the footsteps of devotees. Without desire, fully depend upon the disposition of the Supreme Lord and worship Him, the super soul in devotional service. That we heard before, that's Prahlad instructing his schoolmates. These are words of intelligence. Everyone should know that in every stage of life, we are dependent upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the Dharma religion which we accept should be that which is recommended by Prahlad Maharaj, is Bhagavad Dharma. That's the real religion. This is the instruction of Krishna. Sarvam prajyamam kamsrambacha. To take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna means to act according to the rules and regulations of a Bhagavad Dharma, that devotional service. As far as economic development is concerned, we should discharge our occupational duties of the Lord for the results. As far as economic development is concerned, we should discharge our occupational duties, but fully depend on the lotus feet of the Lord for the results. You have a right to perform your prescribed duties, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. According to one's opposition, one should perform his duties, but for the results, one should depend upon Krishna. Nautam Das Thakur sings that our only desire should be to perform the duties of Krishna consciousness. We should not be misled by the Karma Mimamsa philosophy, which conclude that if we work seriously, the result will come automatically. This is not a fact. The ultimate result depends upon the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in devotional service. Therefore, the devotee completely depends upon the Lord and honestly performs his occupational duties. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj advised his friends to depend completely on Krishna and worship him in devotional service. So that's refuting this Karma Mimamsa philosophy. We should not be misled by this Karma Mimamsa philosophy, which conclude that if we work seriously, the results will come automatically. This is not a fact. It's not a fact. Ultimate result depends on the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In devotional service, the devotee depends upon the Lord and honestly performs his occupational duties. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj advised his friends to depend completely on Krishna and on him and worship him in devotional service. So that was verse 13. And we have also a comment from Vishwanath Bhakti Thakur. In order to show pastimes as a human being, Krishna spoke the philosophy known as Karmavad or Karma Mimamsa to minimize the importance of the demigods. Karma Mimamsa is basically atheism with a belief in reincarnation. Atheism plus belief in reincarnation. That's Karma Mimamsa. Vishwanath says. We read text 14. Yeah. Even if there is some supreme controller, so Krishna said, even if there is some God, some supreme God, Krishna said, who awards all the results of their activities, it must also depend upon a performance engaging in activity. After all, there is no question of being the bestower of fruitive results unless fruitive activity have actually been performed. So which numbers do we have here?
4 and 5.
4 and 5, 2, yeah, correct. 4 means the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a dependent aspect of karma. And 5 is the Lord is under control of karma. We will read the purport of this verse. Here, Lord Krishna argues that if there is a supreme controller, he must be dependent on a performer of activity to reciprocate with, and must therefore also be subject to the laws of karma, being obliged to award happiness and distress to conditioned souls according to the laws of good and evil, good and bad karma. This superficial argument neglects the obvious point that the laws of nature that prescribe the good and bad results of pious and impious acts are themselves creations of the all-good Supreme Lord. So Krishna has created these laws, but Karma Mimamsa does not consider that. Being the creator and sustainer of these laws, the Lord is not subject to them. So these atheistic philosophies, they have a lot of defects. Cannot explain where things coming from. So it's not very intelligent to accept such a thing. Furthermore, the Lord is not dependent on the work of the conditioned soul, since he is satisfied and complete within himself. Out of all of his all-merciful nature, he awards a result appropriate to our activities. That which we call destiny, fate, or karma is an elaborate and subtle system of rewards and punishments meant for gradually encouraging conditioned souls to evolve to the stage of perfect consciousness, which is their original constitutional nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has so dexterously formulated and applied the laws of material nature governing punishment and reward for human behavior that the living being is discouraged from sin and encouraged toward goodness without suffering any significant interference with his free will as an eternal soul. So it are lower religious principles which are full of defects. But anyway, if anyone in this world would even consider these laws of karma and be careful not to do something that will give you suffering, we would live in a different world for sure. But in contrast to the material nature, the Lord exhibits his essential nature in the spiritual world, where he reciprocates the eternal love of his pure devotees. Such loving affairs are based completely on the mutual freedom of the Lord and his devotees. not on a mechanical reciprocation of coinciding selfish interests. The Supreme Lord, assisted by his pure devotees, repeatedly offers the conditioned souls of this world the opportunity to give their bizarre attempt at exploiting the material nature and go back home, back to cottage, for an eternal life of bliss and knowledge. Considering all these points, the atheistic arguments given here by Lord Krishna in a playful mood are not to be taken seriously. So, this verse says, yes, the Lord is just like a judge. The judge must give the results of the personal activities. That he must give rain. If you are pious, he must give rain. It's like the scientists that they speak about the laws of nature. But if there are laws, there must be a lawmaker, and they are not considering that. The broader picture is also not there. So Krishna is just in a playful mood here. We'll read the commentary of Vihe-Bhaktivedanta on 14. But how can inanimate karma alone give results? There must be a dispenser of the results of action, a Lord. This first answers this objection. If such a Lord exists, then he must give results to those who perform actions. Then Krishna makes his logic stronger by negation. If there is a supreme controller, he must depend on a performer of activity to reciprocate with, and must therefore also be subject to the laws of karma, being obliged to award happiness and distress to conditioned souls according to the laws of good and evil. Mother Prabhupada Priya, you had a question about some doubt?
Yes, Maharaj. It seems that this text 14 is it seems to be encouraging them to do the sacrifice rather than discouraging them, because it's saying that you can't get the Lord can't give you the results of your activities unless you actually do the activity. Therefore, you should do the activity, isn't it?
Yes, in some sense it is, but it is not encouraging them to do the sacrifice, because Krishna will say there is no need of demigods. The demigods are not in the picture. There is only karma, no demigods. So, but and that Krishna will explain more subtly further. We will hear that. He will say later there is no need to worship this Indra. Karma is sufficient. This Indra, he must give the reactions also according to karma. So we don't need this Indra. He gives water on the ocean where it's not needed and on the land. So he must act. He's just an instrument of karma. So need to worship. If you are worshipping him or not, it doesn't make any difference. He still has to give the results according to karma. So that will be explained further on. Is that all right?
So when he's saying that, when he's referring to just do your karma and you're going to get the results anyway, what is he referring to? Which activity? Just their cow herd, herding cows and agriculture, like their occupational duties?
Yeah, doing their occupational duties. That act piously means doing one's occupational duties, right? Correct? Thank you. We go to text 15 now. Text 15. Living beings in this world are forced to experience the consequence of their own particular previous work. Since Lord Indra can cannot in any way change the destiny of human beings, which is born of their own nature, why should people worship him? That is text 15. Which principles of the 6 principles are we discussing here?
2.
2.
2 and 3.
Why 3?
Because 3 is talking about the modes that are controlling a person. So the conditioned nature is determined by the mode.
Yes, but the point 3 says the modes of nature are the supreme controller. It doesn't address that directly, but I would say 1 and 2, karma is sufficient, and your previous karma, that's your present nature. These 2. The first paragraph of the purport will remind us to 2 verses. I first read it, the first paragraph, and then tell me the 2 verses of Bhagavad Gita it's referring to. Lord Krishna's argument here is not a negation of free will. If one accepts the existence of karma as a system of laws awarding reactions for our present activities, we ourselves, according to our nature, will decide our future. Please, can you all mute? Thank you. I read again because you probably haven't heard it. Lord Krishna's argument here is not a negation of free will. If one accepts the existence of karma as a system of laws awarding reactions for our present activities, then we ourselves, according to our nature, will decide our future. Our happiness and distress in this life have already been educated and fixed according to our previous activities. And not even that, not even the demigods can change that. So King Indra cannot change that. No need to worship him. But they award the prosperity of poverty, sickness or health, happiness or distress due us by our previous work. However, we still retain the freedom to select a pious or impious mode of activity in this life. And the choice we make will determine our future suffering and enjoyment. So which verses of Bhagavad Gita are we referring to?
Maharaj, is it Nahi Kasya Shanam Api 3.5?
Say that again.
Nahi Kasya Shanam Api 3.5.
3.5. That 3.5. I will read the translation. Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of nature, and no one can refrain him from doing something, not even for a moment. That is, yes, but it's more about being the architect of one's own work, one's own destiny. So there are 2 verses in Bhagavad Gita. Mother Papa.
I was thinking 13, 21, and 22.
Right. Can you read them?
Yeah, 21 says, nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. And 22, the living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the 3 modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species.
So right, we may blame others that it is our own self, but it is our own self that is causing our happiness and distress. So there is an example in the purpose. If I was pious in my last life, in this life the demigods may award me great material wealth, but I'm free to spend my riches for good or for bad purposes, and my choice will determine my future lives. Thus, although no one can change the karmic results due him in this life, everyone still retains his free will, by which he determines what his future situation will be. Lord Krishna's argument here is quite interesting. However, it neglects the overriding consideration that we are all eternal servants of God and must satisfy him by all that we do. So, there is now Sambandhagyan, no knowledge of Krishna and of our relationship with Krishna. In Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada gives a few nice examples. He seems to be inspired by a verse in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj, that which Srila Prabhupada quotes many times. Balasyaneya saranam pitaran singha artasya sargadamudam pratimachatana taptasya tapativiviryayan yasistas tavat vibotanubritam tvakupekshitanam. Srimad Bhagavatam 7:19. 7:19. So, my Lord Nrsimhadev, O Supreme, because of a bodily conception of life, embodied souls neglected by the Lord and not cared for by you can not do anything for their betterment. Whatever remedies they accept, although perhaps temporarily beneficial, are certainly impermanent. For example, a father and a mother cannot protect their child. A physician and medicine cannot relieve a suffering patient, and a boat on the ocean cannot protect a drowning man. So, in the Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada refers to that. So, Maharaj Nanda and other elder members argued that without satisfying the predominating God, one cannot derive any good results simply by material activities. This is actually the fact. For example, it is sometimes found that in spite of first-class medical help and treatment by a first-class physician, a deceased person dies. It is concluded, therefore, that first-class medical treatment or attempts of a first-class physician are not in themselves the cause of curing a patient. There must be a hand of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Similarly, a father's and mother's taking care of their children is not the cause of the children's comfort. Sometimes it is found that in spite of all care by the parents, the children go bad or succumb to death. Therefore, material causes are not sufficient for results. There must be the sanction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, verse 16. So every individual is under the control of his own conditioned nature and thus must follow that nature. This entire universe, with all its demigods, demons, and human beings, is based on the conditioned nature of the living entities. So which of the 6 points is that?
2 and 3.
It's mainly 2.
2.
One's conditioned nature is the supreme controller. That purport. Lord Krishna here elaborates upon the argument given in the previous verse. Since everything depends on svabhava, one's conditioned nature, why worshipping God or the demigods? This argument would be sublime if svabhava or conditioned nature were all powerful. But unfortunately, it is not. There is a supreme controller, and we must worship him as Lord Krishna and as Lord Krishna. Can someone mute? Because that's quite loud. Thank you. There is a supreme controller, and we must worship him as Lord Krishna will emphatically reveal in this chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. For now, however, he is content to tease his relatives. Text 17. Because it is karma that causes the conditioned living entity to accept and then give up different high and low grade material bodies. This karma is his enemy, friend, and neutral witness, his spiritual master, and controlling Lord. So which point is that? It's very clear. Let's read so the 6 points.
Number 2.
It's number 1. Karma is supreme in all respects. Karma is supreme. Purport. So even the demigods are bound and limited by the laws of karma. That Indra himself is subordinate to the laws of karma is explicitly stated in Brahma Samhita. Yastvindra gopam atavendram ausva karma pandana rupa falabhachanam attanoti. The Supreme Lord Govinda awards all creatures the appropriate results of their work. This is as true for mighty Indra, the Lord of material heavens, and it is the germ called Indra Gopa. The Bhagavad Gita also states, Kamastar Dayarittakyam Pavachantina Devata. Only those who have lost their intelligence because of various material desires surrender to the demigods rather than worship the Supreme Lord. In fact, the demigods cannot award benefits to anyone independently, as stated by the Lord himself. Thus, it is not altogether incorrect to say that demigods' worship is useless, since even the demigods are under the laws of karma. In fact, that is the case, but Lord Krishna, the Supreme Absolute Truth, is not subordinate to the law of karma. Rather, he can independently offer or withhold his favor. And this is confirmed in this verse from the Brahma Samhita, quoted above, the third line of which is Karmani nirdati kintu sa bhakti bhajam. Supreme Lord burns up all the accumulated karma of those engaged in devotional service. Not only is Lord Krishna above the laws of material action and reaction, but he can immediately dissolve these laws for anyone who satisfied him through loving service. Thus the Almighty God is supreme in absolute freedom, and by surrendering him, we can escape the bonds of karma and stop accepting their dismal rule as supreme. So this verse from Brahma Samhita is quoted here. Karma is burnt up by devotional service. Now, we have a statement of Bhakti, Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj. The cowboys, headed by Nanda Maharaj, are eternal associates of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna Chandra. The Lord is using them as the example to instruct living entities in general that worshipping different demigods like Indra with the false idea that they are the Lord is useless. So it's using his associates to instruct us. It's again this Bengali proverb, you instruct a daughter to teach a daughter-in-law. That So vice never conquers virtue. That therefore the Pandavas, they suffered to teach us. Each verse 18. Therefore, one should worship work itself. That a person should remain in the position corresponding to his nature and should perform his own duty. Indeed, that by which we may live nicely is really our worshipful deity. So which point is that? Please?
Number 6.
Number 6, yes, the last. Work is worship. Prabhu, can you mute, please? Because the banging is going all over the world. Ending. So, yes, this work is worship. That is a slogan in India also. I think 25 years ago I came to India and I saw a big billboard with Krishna and Arjun on the chariot, and above and beneath was Karman Evatikaraste. Everyone has to do his duty. That of course they didn't mention the second line, Mafalesh Kardachna, in which consciousness one has to do that, but the first line was there, Karman Evatikaraste. So they wanted everyone to do their duty. So devotional service is worship, if done with devotion. We are reading the purport of verse 18. That Lord Krishna here proposes the modern, if absurd philosophy that our work or occupational is really God. And we should therefore simply worship our work. Upon close scrutiny, we observe that our work is nothing more than the interaction of the material body with material nature, as Krishna himself states in a serious mode in the Bhagavad Gita. Gunaganus gunesu vartante. Karma Mimamsa philosophy accepts that good activity in this life will give us a better next life. If this is true, there must be some type of conscious soul different from the body, right? And if that is the case, why should a transcendental soul worship the interaction of the temporary body with the material nature? So in academics, they call that eschatology. So if one gets a reward in heaven, or also the Christians say, yeah, you will go to heaven, that what goes to heaven? It's not the body. The body rots and goes, that or is burnt. That so what remains? What will get a reward? That so that's an important argument in our preaching. If the word sampuyajat, karma, here mean that one should worship the law of karma governing our activities, then one may astutely ask what it means to worship laws, and indeed, what might be the origin of such laws and is maintaining them? So who is the lawmaker? To say that the laws have created or maintaining the world is a meaningless proposition, since there is nothing about the nature of a law that indicates it could generate the existential situation it is supposed to govern. In fact, worship is meant for Krishna himself. And this is the real conclusion, which will be revealed in this chapter. So in the purport here, it's clearly defeated. That work is worship. That then Krishna gives an example in 19 why we should worship work. Mother Kasturika, yes.
Maharaj, I just wonder why someone is so analytical and they can understand how the laws work. Why can't they understand there is a lawmaker behind the laws? What makes them blind about it?
Yes, when I was in the high school, I asked my professor chemistry. We learned about so many formulas that that element combined with that element give that result. And I asked the professor, why is that so? And he said, yeah, that is beyond my subject matter of teaching. So he said, yes, it's like that. So there's also this intelligent design. That's a new trend. They believe there is a higher intelligence that we see the DNA structure of every cell of our body. It's like the software program that it must be a higher intelligence. It's a good question, means that we are all under illusion, what can we say? But I want to finish this section. We will go a little longer, but maybe we can keep questions till the end, because it's all going together, this philosophy. And the next session tomorrow is the more pastime. So text 19. If one thing is actually sustaining our life, but we take shelter of something else, how can we achieve any real benefit? It should be like an unfaithful woman who can never achieve any actual benefit by consorting with her paramour. So we can read the end of the purport here. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the audacity that child Krishna displayed before his father and older elders should be understood as an exhibition of transcendental anger aroused when he saw his eternal devotees worshipping an insignificant demigod. So we see Krishna is angry towards transcendental anger towards Indra. And then later we will see that Indra will become angry. That's interesting. So why does Lord Krishna speak so strong? Because he's angry. You are my devotees and you are worshipping a demigod. Now he's going into specific work. Text 20. The Brahmana maintains his life by studying teaching the Vedas. The member of the royal order by protecting the earth, the Vaishya by trade, and the Sudra by serving the higher twice-born classes. So work means working in the Varnashram. After glorifying karma or work, Lord Krishna now explains what he means by prescribed duties of one's nature. He was not referring to any whimsical activity, but rather to religious duties prescribed in Varnashram or the Vedic social system. Text 21. The occupational duties of the Vaishya are conceived in 4 divisions: farming, commerce, cow protection, and money lending. Out of these, we as a community are always engaged in cow protection. 22. The causes of creation, maintenance and destruction are the three modes of nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. In particular, the mode of passion creates this universe and through sexual combination causes it to become full of variety. So which of the 6 points is that?
Number 3.
Number 3.
Yes, 3, very clear. The modes of nature are the supreme controller. So why suddenly is he talking here about the modes of nature? According to the modes, we have different walks. The Brahmins in goodness, the Kshatriyas in passion, the Vaishyas are mixed passion and ignorance, and the Sudras is ignorance. But in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, he says something else. That anticipating the possible objection that a livelihood based on cows solely depends on Lord Krishna who supplies rain, Lord Krishna here introduces a mechanistic theory of existence known as atheistic Sankhya. The tendency to attribute exclusive causality to the apparently mechanistic functions of nature is an old tendency. Indeed, 5,000 years ago, Lord Krishna referred to a doctrine already well known in human society. So what do these atheistic Sankhya philosophers say? And what is for them the cause of creation? They say that the cause is Pradhan or Brahman. After Pradhan comes then Purusha and Prakriti, and from the Purusha and Prakriti, the Mahatattva, and they think that superior to the Purush of and Prakriti is Pradhan or Brahman. Brahman is supreme. So, what do we say? What is the cause? Kapila Dev, what do we say? What is our Sankhya philosophy? Our cause is Para-Brahman. Para-Brahman, the Purusha glances at Prakriti. And then Purusha and Prakriti makes the Mahatattva. And from that Mahatattva becomes through the Ahankar arises from that, combines with the three modes, and then the whole creation comes. But there is a cause stated as the three modes. That's different. Text 23. Impelled by the material modes of nature, the clouds pour down their rain everywhere, and by this rain all creatures gain their sustenance. What is the great Indra to do with this arrangement? That purport. Lord Krishna continues his mechanistic explanation of existence, concluding, Maindra Kim Karishyati, who needs the great Indra, since the rain sent by the clouds, which in turn are impelled by the modes of by the mode of passion, is actually producing everyone's food. The word Sarvata indicates that the clouds magnanimously send their rain even on the ocean rocks and barren land, where there is no apparent necessity for such sweet water. In Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada writes, the cloud is caused by the action of the mode of passion. Therefore, it is the mode of passion which causes the rainfall. And after the rainfall, the living entities derive the results success in agricultural work. When then has Indra to do with this affair? Even if you do not please Indra, what can you do? We do not derive any special benefit from Indra. If he's there, that he pours water on the ocean where there is no need of water. So he's pouring water on the ocean and on the land. It does not depend on our worshipping him. So it clearly wants to get Indra angry here. The last verse for today, 24. But yeah, that was our section from today, 1 to 24. Last verse. My father, my dear father, our home is not in the cities or towns or villages. Being forest dwellers, we always live in the forest and on the hills. Purport. Lord Krishna here points out that the residents of Vrindavan should recognize their relationship with Govardhan Hill and with the forest of Vrindavan, and not worry about a distant demigod like Indra. Having concluded his argument, Lord Krishna makes a radical proposal in the following verse from Krishna book. After hearing this statement by Krishna, Nanda Maharaj replied, my dear boy, since you are asking, I shall arrange for a separate sacrifice for the local Brahmins and Govardhan Hill. But for the present, let me execute this sacrifice known as Indra Jagya. But Krishna replied, my dear father, don't delay. The sacrifice you propose for Govardhan and the local Brahmins will take much time. Better take the arrangement and paraphernalia you have already made for the Indra Jagya and immediately engage them to satisfy Govardhan Hill and the local Brahmins. Maharaj Nanda finally relented. The coward man then inquired from Krishna how he wanted the Jagya performed, and Krishna gave them the following directions that we'll hear tomorrow. In Nectar of Devotion, there is a quality of Krishna which is in reference to this pastime. And that quality is fluent. A person who can speak meaningful words and with all politeness and good qualities is called Vavaduka, or fluent. This Nectar of Devotion, chapter 21.10, fluent. There is a nice statement in Srimad Bhagavatam regarding Krishna speaking politely. When Krishna politely bade his father, Nanda Maharaj, to stop the ritualistic offering of sacrifice to the rain god Indra, a wife of one village coward man became captivated. She later thus described the speaking of Krishna to her friends. Krishna was speaking to his father so politely and gently that it was as if he were pouring nectar into the ears of all present there. After hearing such sweet words from Krishna, who will not be attracted to him? Hare Krishna. This is the end of the section today. Any further question or comment? Yes, Mother Kasturica.
Maharaj, I have a question with two parts. One, in Bhagavad Gita, we see Krishna telling in the 3rd chapter that how, whatever great man does, the common man follows. And he says that even though I don't have prescribed duties, I still perform prescribed duties so that I can set as an example. So he was directly pointing out there to Arjuna that don't engage in demigod worship or Vedic rituals, but you just worship Vishnu. So why is Krishna not directly pointing towards Vishnu, but he's taking Karma Mimamsa philosophy?
Yeah, that because he's the origin of Vishnu. He's Vishnu. That's a problem. That would distort the whole rasa that of the pastime. And we will see there is a lot of rasa in the pastime, especially the following. It's very, very nectarian. That's a main reason why he does not do that. But It's a bit indirect, because then he will tell them, you worship Govardhan.
Mm.
And Krishna will take the form of Govardhan, so they will worship him. So he will make the arrangement in that way. That it's many times in this pastime that this indirect teaching is there, because of, otherwise it would distort the rasa, the relationships with his devotees. That,
Yeah.
does that help?
Yes, Maharaj. And also, yeah, I think I got answered, but I would also like to know a little bit more. And also in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the second verse, it says that it removes all kinds of Kaitava Dharma. So, and it's very heavy statement. And here I felt like Krishna himself is speaking atheistic philosophy. So, yeah, but as you said, the rasa, so I got the answer.
Yeah, that is also strange. Like Yudhishthira Maharaj would never speak a lie, but Krishna is cheating to convince them to give up a wrong practice. That it's interesting. That's because Krishna is also the illusory energy, that he controls everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
It's a good point, that because we may think, yes, yeah, that's should like you said, we should follow a great man, so we should follow Krishna here, but that's not advised. We have to go deeper and learn the lesson, what he has to teach us, and then from this lesson we should learn that. Thank you. Mother Prabhupada, Priya, please.
I was thinking that this point of Karma Mimamsa, number 2, that our conditioned nature is what's controlling us, that Krishna seems to, I mean, in the Bhagavad Gita 3:33, Krishna makes the same point, that even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature.
Yeah.
For everyone follows the nature he's acquired from the 3 modes. What can repression accomplish? So is it that, I mean, ultimately, yeah, Krishna is the supreme controller, but isn't it true that for those who are not devotees, that basically they're controlled by their nature and the modes, and only devotees, Krishna intervenes and changes karma? And so karma mimamsa, in one sense, it's almost, not totally, but many points of it are kind of true for non-devotees and how they're controlled by material nature and the modes, isn't it?
Krishna gives his devotees realizations. They realize that I am not my mind, and that is a source of material nature. Material mind is made of material nature, and we learn not to identify with it, and by that we become free, surely, from the control of the mind, the control of the material nature, coming through the mind, all these material desires, and we learn not to act upon them and so on. In that way, yes, but if you are not a devotee, then you are identifying with the mind and with your material desires and so on. You are fully controlled by them. Yes, this is the teaching by Bhakti. Does that help?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mother Lalita, Priti Maya, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, just as like Prabhupada Priya Mataji, she said, some of the devotees, they tell to the neophyte devotees that karma controls us because we are not a very pure devotee, like Srila Prabhupada or Bhaktivinoda Thakur Maharaj, like that. So we cannot transcend our karma. So we need to do some kind of demigod worship in order to get free from our karma. And then later when we become a pure devotee, then Krishna looks after our karma. And sometimes they even influence the neophyte devotees to worship demigods. So how can we tell to them, like in a respective manner, how can we tell them that what they're preaching is wrong, Maharaj?
Well, the point is, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, yes, we are under control and you must act according to your nature, but you should use your nature in the service of Krishna. If you use your nature in the service of Krishna, then you become free from karma. And that is the simple principle. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, at the end of the 7th chapter and then in the 9th chapter, don't worship demigods, because it's all for temporary things. That we must not change our karma. We must not to perform good karma. We must stop doing karma, performing karma, and engage only in Krishna karma, devotional service. So that is our teaching. That I hope that helps. So, Murli Darsyanto.
Maharaj, according to the verse number 19, Maharaj, where Jiva Goswami say that Krishna was transcendently anger because his devotee was banned. Sometimes we see that devotee also going to see astrology, and others like Lalita Priti Mataji say that. So how we want to, in a practical way, that how we can, because we in a community, sometimes the fears arise within them. So how we can inspire them that fully surrender to Krishna, Maharaj? Because sometimes the neophyte stage devotees came like, recently I know some of the devotees are gathered together and go to the one of the Deva temples, not for preaching purpose, just they want to worship and all these things. So how we want to, how can in a practical way that we can inspire them, Maharaj? Because we can see that here Krishna is very angry. When Krishna is angry, is it they will come back? Will Krishna accept them, or how the sequence will be there, Maharaj?
Yeah, you can preach to them and explain them what we learn from this chapter here. That is a good teaching, certainly. That is, but yes, just preaching Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Alpamedasam, they are just of little intelligence after temporary things. So they have not understood the principles of pure devotional service. That it's our duty to explain them. Pavitra Prabhu, please.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, the previous chapter, the cowherd ladies were worshipping Lord Katyayani to get Krishna as their husband.
Yeah.
And also here we see that when we worship Indra, we will get rain. And when rain falls, the cows will get grass to eat. And when the cows produce grass, produce milk, that milk will be turned to ghee or for sacrifice. Is that why should in that worship be cancelled?
There is a difference. The gopis, unmarried gopis, they worshipped the goddess Katyayani as the internal energy of Krishna, the spiritual energy. They were not worshipping the material Durga. They were not worshipping a material demigod. So that's quite a different thing. These two things cannot be compared, really. That King Indra Yes, Kenya, he was proud, his pride, and that brings us to the essence of this pastime, because then in the next chapter we will hear about the anger of Indra, and how Krishna will deal with it. So yes, that's what I could say on that. Thank you very much. So tomorrow we will go into the pastime. Will be more Rasika tomorrow. That this false philosophy, we will discuss that further in I think in chapter 88. Chapter 88. There we will discuss all kinds of philosophies, the 6 darshanas, and defeat each of them, each of these atheistic philosophies with deep arguments. So that will come back there. Thank you very much. So tomorrow we have an early shift. It's the last day with an early program, because then after that, then this hermeneutics course is finished tomorrow, the last time. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow early morning. Hare Krishna.